Well, hey everybody, I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to As Above, So Below, a rune and tarot divination for Thursday, the 18th day of August, 2022. Well, the heat's getting worse again. I don't know if we're going to be in the hundreds this next week or what, but 90s definitely. Upper, like 99, I think, a week from tomorrow. I looked at the 10-day forecast, and I'm like, oh my God. I don't like really a lot of heat. I've never been able to deal with it. If I could just, if it could be 65 every day, that'd be fine. I'd be great. But anyway, welcome everybody. If this is your first time here, I'm going to go ahead and start with the esoteric influences. This is taken from the post I do weekly. It goes up on Saturdays. Also goes out in a newsletter Saturdays. That just talks about the esoteric influences. I go over the things I use to write this stuff as a numerology for the day itself. I choose, or I draw an Elder Futhark rune, like I'm going to do here today. I also draw a Geomancy rune. I look at generally speaking, I started out looking at the lunar aspects for every day of the week, but now it's more basically focused on the governing planet for each day. So that's involved. And then also the second paragraph is devoted to the human design chart for the day. And the charts that I do, the astrological and the human design charts, are all done for 8 o'clock in the morning. I have it set for Portland, Oregon, instead of where I'm in Central. But that's just so it's more of a West Coast Pacific, time type of a reading. So, anyway, that's what this is that I do, and I since I do this on Mondays and Thursdays, I just take the one from each of those days. So for today, the specific influences for the 18th of August, 18 reduces to 9, so we have a 9 numerology. Othala was the Elder Futhark rune. Fortuna Major was the Geomancy rune, and Jupiter's in Aries today. And Jupiter governs Thursday, so that's why we're looking at Jupiter in Aries. So anyway, a project may be coming to an end, so take stock of where you are today and focus on what remains undone. Although you're motivated to succeed, you're happiest when you're investing in endeavors that align with your spirituality. The project may yield some material security. When all is said and done, though, you'd rather focus on a search for spiritual truth that expands your inner resources and awareness, not so much your external resources. Although, that's certainly valuable because you got to pay the bills, right? So you understand that a collaborative or independent relationship with others leads to greater organization and success, but you're less focused on coming out on top than you are in pursuing a harmonious experience with others. So watch for the esoteric influences to come out on Saturday night or Saturday evening. And I usually schedule this stuff in the 6 o'clock hour. So look for that on the blog, and you'll have your own copy of it. If you want to sign up for the newsletter, sign up's on the left side panel. Just scroll down a little bit when you get to Stepping Aside, and you'll see it. Just put your email in there and you'll get this and a few other things that I put in the newsletter in your inbox. Also on Saturday, usually afternoon sometime, I'll post that out there. So anyway, you can always unsubscribe anytime you want. There's a unsubscribe link both at the top and the bottom of the email. So if it just gets to be too much, just unsubscribe. That's fine, because you can always go over to the blog and see it. And the web address for Stepping Aside is imsteppingaside.com. And if you want to click on show more below the video, you'll see a description of what this is. And then below that, you'll see some links, and the web address is there as well. So enough of that, the housekeeping stuff of the day. Let's go ahead and take a rune to get us started. I need to get my keyboard a little further out of the way here. What is all this stuff? I don't know where this stuff comes from. I mean, obviously it's coming from me, but I don't have any memory of doing any of it. Oh, I remember what I did there. My cords that I use to charge my keyboard and my mouse, I sort of wound them up, and they're in the way now. Trying to move my keyboard out. I was like, why can't I do this? What's in the way? And that's what it is. So for today, we have Thurzaz. Thurzaz is the thorn, or Thor's rune. So basically, when you see Thurzaz in a reading, you're thinking about opposition or what opposes you. Even if you're getting in the way of yourself, it can mean giants, and it can mean chaos. It's useful in weather magic to break up clouds. You can chant Thurzaz in part of your ritual. And it reportedly breaks up clouds. I've done it, and it happens. So either it happened due to what I was doing, or it was a coincidence. But I needed to go somewhere, and I was going a distance, and I didn't need the weather. So could have just happened on its own, though. But this is Thurzaz, and basically, it's a very powerful rune. It can be about protection. But basically, you're dealing with impulsive behavior a lot of the time with Thurzaz, which can get in the way. If you act on impulse, it can get in the way of accomplishing what you want to actually accomplish. So this could be dealing with impulse. It could be dealing with again, somebody opposing forces. It could be that, but let's go ahead and look at, we don't know yet though. Okay, these are just the significators of the reading, the overall focus of it, we can say. So throwing down the elemental geomancy runes, I have Caput Draconis, which is the opposite or complement of Cauda Draconis. Caput, there it is right on top. It deals with the north node of the moon, and so you're talking about new beginnings, being on the threshold of something. The head of the dragon is what this is. Kata would be reversed. It would look like this. So that would be endings. This would be beginnings. So either you're entering a period where there's going to be some chaos in your life, or some lack of impulse control, or the need for protection, or weather magic maybe, or you're dealing with Thurzaz is also about new beginnings, and so maybe there's a breaking through to something new. Maybe we'll talk about it that way, but let's see what the cards have to say. They'll give us a little more, they'll define it more, give us more of the details. Now, I've gone ahead and I've already shuffled quite a bit already while I was sitting here getting quiet for the reading. I like to do that just to kind of empty my mind of different things that I'm ruminating on, so I'm not bringing that into the interpretations. So I just kind of sit quietly and I shuffle for a little while, and then I open up the software here, the video software, and get that ready, and then we go. So I think we're going to go ahead and cut the deck and take the lower half, and let's go ahead and see what we have. Well, put that over there. In case we need another one, we're going to take it from the top half of the deck. We have two cards from the court, one from swords, one from cups, and then we have one from the major arcana. So we start with the Knight of Swords. I don't remember if we had this, or maybe I had it in a reading. I did a couple of readings on the blog. I think I also posted them over on Patreon. One had to do, it had to do with the two decks I just bought last week, and I told you guys about that on Monday. So anyway, I just posted another one. I wrote it yesterday and forgot to post it, so then I didn't come back to it. So I posted it this morning, so it's over there on the blog. That's using the black deck, but they're both cool and interesting readings. Here we have the Knight of Swords. The Knight is someone who's very, very passionate, very they're a soldier, definitely. But he's going back to right the wrongs. Going back to, in other words, and the wrongs have to do with perception. Swords is the air element, so it's going to be all the intellectual stuff. It's also going to be legal issues, reason, justice, fairness, balance, deception, truth, and all of that. And so it's like he's going against the wind. You can see the wind blowing the trees here, but he's cutting through the deceptive clouds above with his sword. Now he's seeing clearly, though, because his visor is up. But it's very swift action with this knight. There's something that needs to be cleared up. There's something that needs to be, and again, Thurisaz can align very well with that, where you're trying to break through stuff that's just nonsense, and you're trying to get to the truth of things in terms of protection or defense or new beginnings. That would all factor in. But there's some chaos going on or some deception going on, and the knight is going back and saying, no, we're not going to have any of that. Here's what the actual truth is. And then we come to the star. Now the star is the 17th card from the Major Arcana. This is about hopes and wishes and dreams. Inspiration, insight, optimism, joy. The goddess is in her nude form with one knee on the ground and one in the water, and one foot in the water. And she's pouring water both into the pool below her and also onto the ground. Spiritual nourishment might be thought to be part of this as well. The 17th card of the Major Arcana has a final numerology of 8. And so you're looking at strength, inner strength, though, spiritual strength, if you will. So together then, the Knight of Swords and the Star, it could be that we need to have some inner strength to be able to see the truth, to be able to stand up to deception and lies, to protect against the impact of deception or chaos. Again, it's self-defense in a way, because you can see the higher picture. You can have a higher understanding of what's going on versus the reactive ego. We tend with the ego to look only at the little minute aspects of things. And we don't seem to want to understand the bigger picture. I knew this guy once that I mean, the way he expressed himself was nothing short of vulgar. So you have to ask yourself, what is he getting out of that? What's the whole point of talking that way to a woman? But he didn't just speak to women that way. He spoke to men that way. So he was provocative. Well, I found out that he had dealt with some really serious personal tragedies. I didn't know that about him. And at some point I found that out from somebody else. And so it basically, it's almost like what he did was a pushback to all of the pain that he'd gone through. And once I saw him through that lens, when I had that piece, I wasn't as reactive to the words that were coming out of his mouth. And I was really, I mean, it was almost like he was employing Thurisaz in a very defensive way before anybody said anything to him. He got the provocative stuff out there, which maybe made people go, oh my goodness, and they don't say anything, right? So, but see, without that other piece, I wouldn't have known that. And I think that that's where the star comes in, although it's a very happiness and hopes and wishes and transformative type of a card. There's an element of insight there, I think, and that and inspiration that maybe leads you in another path, especially if it's about perception. And again, with the Knight of Swords, we're talking about perception. We're talking about also deception. But how we see it, are we going to see it from the reactive ego, or are we going to try and get above it all and try to figure out, all right, what's really going on here? And I think that there's an element to the star and also to Caput Draconis with the concept of being on the threshold of something new. Are we on the threshold of maybe seeing things a different way, less reactive, less getting in the way of really understanding what's happening? And I'm keeping this general because I don't know what's happening in your life. So, but let's look at the King of Cups. Now, the King of Cups can be spiritual and generous and loving and all of that, but he can also be impulsive. He can also be passive aggressive. He holds he's not really looking you in the eye. He's kind of looking off to the future. But he's sitting on a throne, literally in the water. And I think, is that a boat? Yes, that's a boat right over here. The water is choppy, as you can see, as the King of Cups can sometimes be. He's not analytical like the King of Swords would be. He's not fiery and like the King of Wands would be, and being someone who's about new opportunities and the creative force and all of that. Now the King of Wands can also be very authoritarian, but the King of Pentacles can be about gathering wealth for the and security, material security for the kingdom. Unfortunately, there's this passive aspect to him where maybe he'll just get a little self-indulgent and all of that. Well, the same is kind of that same sort of dichotomy is true for the King of Cups. He can be compassionate, he can be generous, he can be caring, he can give wise counsel, but at other times he's very passive aggressive, and sort of the king versus the manipulator, if you will. So maybe the deception has to do with the king, and what the truth that the knight is trying to reveal to everyone here is cutting through the deception, cutting through the illusion, but riding against the wind, riding against the challenges to do that. So if it's impulsivity, maybe, because that's part of Thurazaz, maybe the knight is trying to suggest that that's not the way to be, that's not the way to respond to things in an impulsive way, that for something new to take place, for new beginnings to take place, you've got to deal with something a little differently. So maybe instead of responding, we could look at the king this way, instead of responding in a passive aggressive way and maybe doing nothing, not confronting somebody about their deception, maybe the knight is suggesting that we have to do that we have to tear apart the illusion and see things for what they are. Now, this could also be self-deception, that he's having to go back and take a look at and cut through the self-deception that we've been engaging in of late. We need to gain some insight from that, from the star, and not be so passive-aggressive. Maybe this is part of the self-deception, not deal with things in a passive-aggressive way. So rather it's how you are today or somebody else is, you could be dealing with that today, where someone is just not really as focused on the moment, because if you look at the king, he isn't. He's looking toward the future. He's not looking directly at you. If he was looking directly at us, then we would think that he is actually focused in on what's going on. But instead, he's drifting off thinking about, what other excuse he's going to have or something. Especially if you're dealing with a person in authority today that's not really being honest with you. You have to gain an overall insight. You've got to get other information, maybe. It can't just be hoping and wishing that it's all going to go right, because it may not. And you have to realize that there's a factor here of someone who may not be looking directly at the problem, even if that's you, or it could be someone else. So again, this is a reading that initially with Thurazaz, it might seem like, if you're looking at it in terms of what opposes you, we would typically think, well, it's somebody else, or something else that is opposing you. But it may not be. It may just be how you process things. If you're processing them and you're not really looking, you're believing the illusion of it all, because it's easier to do that. You're not looking within to see what the greater message is, what's really going on. Like with that guy I knew, that there was more to the way he acted than what we read, and it was really born of a lot of pain. That could be what's happening with someone in your life, that you're having to try to figure out what's going on here, what's the real truth of this. And if the person won't look you in the eye, if they're drifting off and they're not really paying attention, maybe they're thinking about their own responses versus really hearing you. And so there's just, I don't know, with passive aggressive stuff, that's manipulative, it's deceptive, and it's hard to get them to come to a focus that's really focused directly on what it is you need to talk about. But there's a swiftness to this that I can't let go of here with the knight, and the pushing against him with the wind. That's opposing forces. He's having to come to some kind of understanding about something and cutting through the illusion of it all against the wind, basically, against the opposing forces that don't want him to know the truth, basically. So I think that although we can remain optimistic with the star, I think that we can have the hope and the wish that we can understand things. It's going to take a little more than that. Although if you look at that in terms of higher awareness, then then what that's implying is that you have to get above it all, get out of the reactive ego of it all, and try to understand from a higher perspective what's really going on here for you today. And again, it can either be about something you are doing and how you are reacting to something, or it could be the opposing forces that are external that Thurisaz does imply, as well as the internal. See, what you have here is you have Isa here, which is the line, the looks like an eye, and then you have this part here, which is Kenaz. But Kenaz is turned inward. It's reversed. In the creation of Thurisaz. And so when you look at Kenaz, that's the torch, that's the light of spirit. So that's higher awareness, all right? And higher awareness coming in and informing you the truth of the matter. So again, are you your own worst enemy? Are you getting in the way of the truth? Are you reacting in a way that's passive aggressive? Is this a personal reading, in other words? Or is this describing having to get to the bottom of something with somebody that may be an authority in your life who's not really being straight with you? And you have to use higher awareness, or if it's not higher awareness, then it's finding out other kinds of details about what's going on about this person, what's going on if this is at work, what's going on in the business that you're not aware of. Are you just dealing with a boss who's just who isn't going to ever be straight with you? And so you've got to try to figure out what the truth is and cut through the nonsense. And it just seems like there's a sense of urgency about that, though, with the Knight of Swords. So again, you can look at this from two different perspectives, really. So figure out if any of that resonates for you, and if it does, hopefully I've given you something here to think about, either in terms of your own, the way you process things yourself and how you react and how you engage with others, or whether or not it has to do with somebody external to you that's just getting in the way of things, and not, because if you get somebody that won't focus, it's really, really irritating, because nothing ever gets accomplished. You don't get at the truth of the situation. You don't really understand the facts. And I don't know how you ever move forward without knowing any of that, right? You just got to have all the facts, all the truth on the table, and but there can't be one person who's trying to stymie that, because obviously they've done something, that they've participated in what the problem that's going on in some way, and they just don't want anyone to really know it. So they want to get in the way of things. And so it just seems to me that it's probably more that than anything internal. But for people that are struggling with this sort of thing, then maybe this does apply personally to you. So anyway, I don't think we need another card. I think that But I just want to say there feels like there's a sense of urgency that something needs to be dealt with today, or in the next couple of days. That maybe it's just been swirling around for too long and with no resolution. So in comes the night. It's like, well, I'll fix it then. Let's figure out what the truth really is and all of that. So, and in a sense, there's a sense of demanding that we know the truth. So hopefully it's nothing too serious, but if it is, then maybe this is just signaling that you might think about dealing with it today. Again, with this 9 energy for today, this 9 numerology, we have a sense of endings and completion. So something needs to come to an end today. Othala is about, it's the last rune of the Elder Futhark. This is in the esoteric influences that we started out with. Othala is about, well, it's about all kinds of things. It's about prosperity, tradition, possessions, legacy. Also, if you can also think of it as the Akashic record of our lives. Fortuna Major is greater fortune. And Jupiter in Aries is really about, Jupiter's very expansive right now. It's in retrograde, so we're expanding the awareness within about how we handle situations maybe. Mars is a very active planet. It's very active influence. The martial side of things, so it can indicate how we deal with conflict, how we deal with people just in general. It can deal with, but it can also be about motivation. So maybe we reflect on how motivated we are to look at things realistically and see the truth of things, or are we a little more inclined to manipulate the situation and to our own advantage. So a lot of issues today, I think a lot of influences, in addition to the reading, are suggesting that there's a new path that's unfolding and we need to bring something to an end. And that may be what the Knight of Swords is really saying. This all needs to stop now. We need to be more realistic. We need to see things as they are. We can't allow people, if it's somebody else in our lives that's not really wanting to focus on the problem, you've got to convince them, look, we need to work through this now before it gets any worse. And I need your attention. You're drifting. I think you're drifting. I need you to focus, to keep the conversation simply about the issue itself. People that are passive aggressive will take it off in other directions, and that's lovely for them, but it doesn't deal with the situation that you're dealing with. So that's probably, or that may be what some of this is about. That sort of energetic interaction, if you will, to achieve some kind of energetic balance that needs to be there, so that something can actually happen that's positive. Okay? So that's it. The cotton fuzz is flowing again. It's out there in the cottonwood trees. I think this is either the second or third time in all the years we've lived here that the cotton has shed twice off the trees. And it's blowing in the air, and the sinuses are filling, and it's not fun. So my husband is a mess. He has allergies, and this really affects him. And I'm all stuffed up, and my eyes hurt. So it started yesterday, and it's like, oh no, we were hoping it was just residual in the trees, but we've had so much wind here that I don't think so. And we've had some pretty good rains, and I would think that whatever was there is now gone. And so I think that this is new, and I'm surprised it's happening this late in August. Usually the time it's happened before, it happened in June and July, and there was maybe about, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks in between when it happened. And so I'm surprised to see this happening toward the end of August. So, but the climate's changing, and what did I read by, let's see, was it 2030 something or 2050 something? We may be looking at triple digits in the summertime in places that never really had those. So the planet's heating up, and I don't know, lots of changes in the air. We're having to cope with a lot of stuff that we didn't have to cope with before. So, and you see it if you have property, you see it in your gardening. The gardening is doing very well at this moment, but it took forever to get started. Weird spring and early summer here. Not typical at all of our area. And so hopefully the tomatoes are filled with, the plants are filled with tomatoes, and the corn is growing and corn is forming. And so I'm thinking we're going to get stuff this year. But if we have early frost, we'll have to cover stuff to make that happen. I'm starting to pick beans. I'm, starting to clear stuff out of some garden areas. So, it's happening. It just seems like it's happening a couple weeks later than it's supposed to be. So things are changing, and as well, I think they're changing with people, and so the struggle happens in that transition. So just be aware of that, and keep your own counsel and try to see things from a higher perspective. So anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for coming by. I hope you'll click subscribe if you haven't, and give it a like if you would. That would be lovely. And come back again next Monday for another edition of As Above, So Below. Be good to yourself, be good to one another, and blessed be.